Hey friends, this is Cathy from Whole Home and Body Health, and today I want to talk to you about the EMF exposure that you may experience on an airplane. So right now I'm actually in the airport. I'm in the Boise, Idaho airport. I'm getting ready to board a plane here in just a minute on my way to Kansas City, Missouri to visit some family. And I did bring some meters with me, and I'm going to show you what the readings are when I'm on the plane. So I'm going to test the electric fields, the magnetic fields, and the radio frequency. Now, I'm not going to necessarily be talking when I'm taking those measurements because, you know, I'm going to have these big meters and they're going to be making noise, and I want to draw as little attention to me as possible while on a plane so that I don't get flagged and kicked off or who knows what. So I will just show you the readings that I'm getting, and then after the fact I will talk about what those readings mean. Sorry about the overhead. So stay tuned and I will show you these readings in just a moment.
Must go under the seat or in an overhead bin. Thank you for joining us for your flight to Denver. Welcome for the entirety of the flight. If you are eating or drinking, one needs to be in their seat with their seatbelts fastened, seatbacks centered.
I'm back home in Boise, Idaho. I had total on this trip. One from Boise to Denver, and then Denver to Kansas City, and then Kansas City to Denver, and Denver back to Boise. And so you may have noticed that we had a lot of variations, which is normal and expected. It's a little bit frustrating though, because we can't say, oh, when you're flying, you're going to get this much radio frequency and this much magnetic field and this much electric field, because every single flight is different. But just to recap, the overall picture, this is what I found. So the radio frequency tends to be highest at the airport itself rather than in flight, which may be kind of surprising, but it's that radar. So that little blip that you hear on the video where I showed that, that's the radar. And that I have found that in some airports, when the radar is very, very high and comes with quick frequencies, I have gotten nauseous in those situations. I'm somewhat sensitive, but not very, very sensitive. I don't usually notice these things, but in a airport with high radar, it does bother me. Whereas in the flight itself, I don't necessarily notice. So I found it very interesting that in flight, the numbers were lower than I expected. They were still very high, but I expected them to be significantly higher than they were. In one flight, I had like 2,000 microwatts per square meter, way, way lower than anything you're going to get from your Wi-Fi, your phone. I mean, you can get 1 million, 2 million from your phone. You can get same from your Wi-Fi router. Most people's homes that I walk into that are not hardwired and they have smart devices, way higher than 2,000 microwatts per square meter. So I felt that was a good thing. Now, I didn't have anyone sitting next to me, so that was probably one of the big reasons why. Because if I had somebody next to me with earbuds, a phone, a Fitbit, their computer, whatever, my exposure is obviously going to be higher. So in the other flights, I did have, so every flight's going to be different. If you can get a seat with no one next to you, of course, way better, obviously. So the radio frequency varied dramatically. So, I mean, like I said, I did expect it to be higher, so I was glad that it wasn't. Now, for the magnetic field, high. The magnetic field was high, up to 30 or so milligauss. That's quite elevated. We want that number to be 0.2 milligauss or below. So I think that when a lot of people fly a lot and they feel crappy, a lot of it is probably because of that magnetic field. So your feet, are bathing in 30 milligauss, fluctuating up and down for hours at a time. And I consistently found high levels of magnetic fields. Sometimes it was 10, sometimes it was 5, sometimes it was 30. That's a huge range, but all of those are quite elevated. So that's a problem. I may have found that it was a little bit less at the window seat than the aisle seat. That seemed to be the case in a couple of my flights, but I was on 4 flights. That's not conclusive. It seemed to be that way. It's a little bit confusing why. I guess, I don't know. The motors, the wires, something, more towards the aisle than it is towards the window seat. I can't, confirm that that's the way it is all the time, but that seemed to be what I was finding, which I was kind of surprised about. Now, the electric fields were actually lower than I expected. I expected them to be significantly higher. They were elevated, but not nearly to the degree that I expected. A lot of times in people's homes, in their bed, I get 20, 30, 40 volts per meter, and I was getting like 5 to 10 volts per meter in the plane. Now, it's probably because the wires are shielded. I'm guessing. I don't know that, but I would assume that they are, which is going to decrease your electric field. I did find a high electric field in the airport on the seats in the waiting areas where the seats have outlets to them. So I showed a picture of that. When you are in an airport and you see seats and it's got a little plug there for you to plug in your crap and charge it, those were very, very elevated. So if you can find a seat that doesn't have wires running through it, that's way better, because those wires are clearly not shielded. If you're going to sit down for an hour and wait for your flight, if you can find a seat away from charging stations, that would be best. But in flight, not as much of a problem as I expected, so that was good. And then finally, I was not able to test the dirty electricity, so what the dirty electricity is doing. I could have used a small handheld AM radio to hear interference or noise. I didn't have that with me, so I wasn't able to do that, but I'll try to do that in some future video when I fly again. I hate flying. I loathe it, so I don't do it often. But the next time I fly, I will try to do that. So we don't know what the dirty electricity is doing. But again, if the wires and things are shielded, it hopefully may be less than we think. So that was it. I hope you found that helpful. I know it doesn't give you a ton of answers, but the basic takeaway is every flight's going to be different. We know there's going to be high magnetic fields. With each advent of new technology, probably our radio frequency is going to get higher. Electric fields weren't that bad. So in a future video, I will also show how to protect yourself while flying. In fact, I'm going to do a whole webinar on this because it's a huge topic. There's so many things that you can do that you can protect yourself while flying. things like antioxidants, earthing, keeping your nervous system out of fight or flight, all of these things that can be very helpful to combat all of these frequencies that we are getting. So stay tuned for that video. And in the meantime, if you've got comments, questions, concerns, leave them below. I'm always happy to help. Please hit that bell and subscribe so that you know when I am putting out a new video and I can help to bring this information to more people. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.